everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Genre Equality Podcast on the Genre Equality channel. My name is Hidzir.
I'm Hadi.
I'm Isa.
We have lots to talk to you about this month, particularly with a stacked summer rundown.
Mhm.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is out in cinemas right now, killing the box office. On the flip side, Disney Plus has released and completed the first season of Moon Knight, starring Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. So we'll be covering both the MCU in the big screen and the small screen. Plus, me and Hadi will be talking about Undone Season 2. The Northman is out right now alongside Love, Death, and Robots Volume 3, currently out on Netflix. Hadi is gonna valiantly attempt to review Halo and Star Trek Picard for us. Much respect, Hadi. Thank you so much
You're
for this.
welcome.
This is why we brought you back.
Yeah.
Um, alongside many more topics. But first, we kick off with some rather sad news. Since our last recording, just over the last 30 days, two icons of the comic book industry have sadly passed away.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say a few short words about George Perez, the famed comic book artist of Wonder Woman
Mhm.
and Crisis on Infinite Earths, alongside Neal Adams, who has also passed away,
Mhm.
who is a legend in both DC and Marvel comics from the 60s and 70s,
Yep.
particularly with Batman, Superman, Avengers, X-Men, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Both these guys are real titans of the industry, and within the past month, both have passed away.
Mhm.
Isa, I think not just Isa, Isa and Hadi, we all have read comics for a long time.
Mhm.
Do you have any memories or thoughts that you like to share about the passing of either Neil Adams or George Perez?
Oh man.
Okay. You go ahead first, Isa.
Uh I think Wonder Woman was a very kind of pivotal character for me. Especially
Mm,
like if we're talking, well, not golden age necessarily, but if we're talking like going into modern comics like early
Mm.
90s and going to that, like Wonder
Yep.
Woman was an important comic book for me to understand. Just like it was a huge change, right, in terms of
mhm,
like how women were represented in comics and what is possible with the storytelling of the medium surrounding, right, women
mhm,
figures, women of power, and all of that jazz. So, very important figure both in that and just like in my consumption of like geek culture, especially. And I think like
yep,
even that has led up, to today, with everything that's been going on and the kind of revolutionary have. I think it started with the very kind of simple idea
mhm,
that Perez's original character kind of
yep.
like kickstarted. Yeah.
What about you, Hadi?
For George Perez, I think the one thing that I really remember him for was
Mm,
the GLA Avengers crossover. Lah.
yep.
Yeah, back in the early 2000s, because that was the nascent time when I was like really reading comics, and like
Mhm,
I was in secondary school, and it was like going to Comic Smart at Serene Center, and I still remember that, and that was one of the first like I mean, it was long awaited, right? And it was like this really cool concept of the two DC Marvel characters, actually being in one comic,
mm,
right? So that really was my I think my fondest memory lah, of reading that comic lah. It's not a very good comic though. I mean, it's like every
it, it,
you know, but
it's not, but what George Perez is, as you're talking about, known for, right, is
yeah,
drawing these
yes,
gigantic ensemble super teams.
yes,
I think
Yeah.
his biggest gift that most people know of is his illustrations of complex crowds, with
yes.
detailed drawings and realistic renderings of like 500 characters in each frame.
Thank you.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, he was that guy, and that's why he was often handpicked for titles like Avengers and titles like JLA, and of course,
Hmm.
Crisis on Infinite Earths was his coup de grace.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Neil Adams sort of made Batman scary
Oh
again.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
Neil Adams was, to me, the definitive Batman artist.
Mhm.
And his work on Batman is what stands out to me the most. But of course, he's done so much work with so many other titles as well.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
both of these guys, huge, huge body of work that will be remembered to this day. I own a lot of their comics, as do both
Of
of
us.
you.
Yeah.
So yeah, R.I.P. to George Perez and Neil Adams.
Hmm.
Let's kick it off from comic books to comic book movies.
Ooh.
We're here to talk about Doctor Strange 2, in the Multiverse of Madness. In Marvel Studios' latest film, the MCU unlocks the multiverse and pushes its boundaries further than ever after the events of Loki, What If, and Spider-Man No Way Home. We're probably going to keep it spoiler free at first. So here's the kind of the barest bones synopsis. We journey into the unknown with Doctor Strange, who, with the help of mystical allies, both old and new, transverses mind-bending and dangerous alternate realities of the multiverse to
Mm-hmm.
confront a mysterious new adversary who is in the form of an old hero. Um, what did you guys think of Doctor Strange 2? Let's kick it off with Hadi here. I think Hadi has a more optimistic, positive view, whereas I think Isa has a more underwhelming view. So let's kick it off with the positive. Hadi, what do you think about Doctor Strange 2?
Okay, on the positive side of it,
Yep.
I found it. First of all, okay, what's the director's name?
Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi. Thank you. I think Sam Raimi put his identity on this movie very well. In terms of the horror elements that pop up here and there.
Yep.
I like that. I like the continuation of the mystical side of the mystical and the multiversal side of the MCU, right? Being explored even more in this movie. Um, I love all the Easter eggs that were placed in this movie because there's so many Easter eggs in this movie.
Yeah.
So if you are a person that is a Marvel fan, not only an MCU fan, but Marvel in general, you caught a lot of things lah.
Yep.
Especially on the second viewing lah. And yeah, so that was something that I enjoyed a lot. I also I loved how America was introduced to us.
America Chavez is a new comic book hero introduced in this film. Her powers is to transverse the multiverse. That's
Correct.
her gift.
Exactly,
Yep.
and she's the only person that can do it, and therefore she can't find any other versions of her in any of the multiverse.
Yeah, she's very unique.
Yeah.
She doesn't require technology or spells to transverse multiverse. That's just what she does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To keep it spoiler free, some of the cameos a bit too much, or like, and some of the parts didn't really make. I mean, it felt a little bit packed with too much information sometimes.
Yep.
And people can get lost. So yeah, that's another thing that I find that was a bit worrisome lah. But overall, I did enjoy the movie for what it was lah. I wouldn't say it's perfect by by a long shot lah. But I still enjoyed myself throughout lah. Yeah.
Sure.
And also
What about you?
and also the tie-ins to all the other MCU what do you call it? Movies and TV
Franchises,
series. Yeah.
properties.
That's nice.
Yep.
That's a little good lah, good stuff there.
Yeah. What about you, Isa?
I will go as far as to say that like Hardy, I did enjoy Multiverse of Madness for sure. I do think that this is one of the cases that, in general, the fandoms have spoiled themselves by overreaching with their imagination. So anyone who has subscribed to the entire idea that we were going to get an entire slew, a spectacular kind of like panorama of all possible versions in all possible realities in this one single movie are going to be sorely disappointed. But what this movie does deliver is it delivers enough, right? It delivers enough of a look into the multiverse to feel coherent enough as a story. I do agree that some of the cameos seemed a bit much. And I'm very, very glad for the newcomer who plays America Chavez. I really enjoyed her kind of role. Benedict Cumberbatch continues to be Benedict Cumberbatch. A bit of phoning it home, in my opinion. And Elizabeth Olsen had some amazing moments. But overall I felt like there was some bits that felt a little uneven. But still, like a fun ride, all in all. I think like visually, conceptually, some of the ideas that they've borrowed from this multiverse idea that is such a huge topic within the comic books and difficult in general to kind of tackle it's been done fairly well, right? If not in its completion, this is our first peek, anyway, right?
Yep.
On the big screen. So
Mm.
in that respect, I think it's pretty well done, but far from being the best MCU movie or the most
Yeah.
mind blowing one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the second peak, technically after No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move into spoiler territory. Of course, it features, like Hardy mentioned, a shit ton of cameos, as the Multiverse of Madness should have.
Yeah.
But it has both too much and too little, depending on your point of view. Some people
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's not enough. Some people feel like it's too much, like Hardy. But let's address what is fair. Of course, the big one, beyond Patrick Stewart returning as Professor Xavier for this alternate universe that Doctor Strange comes to, we also have John Krasinski
Yeah.
as Mr. Fantastic. We have Anson Elgort. Sorry, not Anson Elgort. Different person, Anson Mount.
Yes.
Yes.
Anson Mount, who
Uh,
played the Inhumans king.
yeah, yes. Black Bolt is there as well. Haley Atwell is back as Captain Carter for a different universe.
Mm-hmm.
Monica Rambeau is playing that universe's version of Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And Chiwetel Ejiofor playing another version of Mordo as well.
Mm-hmm.
The big topic coming out, spoiler wise, is the multiversal Illuminati. At least that universe is Illuminati, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys enjoy that little Easter egg? Let's begin with you, Hadi.
Yeah, I definitely did because it was. I mean, my theater, I think, actually like cheered and clapped loud, and that happened, right?
Yes, yeah.
But I mean, I think the small, like, okay, because Inhumans, remember the TV series, how bad it was.
Yep.
Oh,
So when
God.
Anson Mount was Black Bolt, he was like, okay, lah, nobody cheered for that lah. Nobody realized, I think, that it was Anson Mount reprising his role as Black Bolt,
Yeah.
right? John Krasinski, I'm guessing he's going to have a Fantastic Four movie coming out, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite cool to see him in this version of Mr. Fantastic.
Mhm.
I think, I mean, Captain Britain, I guess.
Carter.
Captain Carter, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, we already saw it in What If, so this was quite cool to see
Mm.
it live action, right?
She has a jetpack in this one.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, yeah, obviously Xavier is the number one thing, like, Picard, Xavier, whatever. I'm going to cover a lot of Patrick Stewart today.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, yeah, Patrick Stewart reprising his role as Charles Xavier was dope. Though his death was, wait, are we spoilers really?
Yes, we're in spoilers.
Yeah,
we're
right.
spoilers.
Yeah, his death was hilarious. But also the horror element of Sam Raimi there, lah. With him getting killed in his mind and therefore getting killed in real life. I love that, lah. Yeah, and also to show the power level of Scarlet Witch, lah. Obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, she's certainly the most powerful character in the MCU at
As she
the
should be,
moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bar none. And she is one of the most powerful, legendarily, in comic book canon as well. What about you, Isa?
Oh, the Illuminati version that we got. Love the fact that Krasinski is there. Like, I can't wait to see him kind of like fulfill that role as Mr. Fantastic. I think that it's been with all the Fantastic Four movies that has come out, no one has felt quite as right as Krasinski so far. And we've only seen him in like a couple of minutes of screen time total, right? I'm very curious as to who they're going to fill out the rest of the cast for. I think it's been a while since Fantastic Four has lapsed back into the MCU's purview. And I am very curious as to how they're going to do it. Obviously, Multiverse of Madness has opened that door, or at least the possibility of that happening fairly soon. Of course, Patrick Stewart as Professor X is dope. Still my favorite version of Professor X on the big screen so far.
Seriously.
Yeah, no,
With the corny yellow wheelchair.
Yeah, I think that to me felt a lot more like the Xavier that I remember from the original 90s cartoon.
Correct.
Right?
Same. And they even did the theme song.
Yeah, and like I feel like Stewart had enough gravitas to kind of pull off the fact that he is not just carrying on screen like this whole like hit canon of the X-Men movies that we got back then, right? The early ones. But also kind of like encapsulating whatever more grimy, more dirty, more like dark version of McAvoy's kind of performances as well. Which I kind of like, right? But like this felt a little bit more like what we got in Logan, which I'm cool with. As far as let's go, Monica Rambeau as that. It's a cool kind of side note, I guess. Something that I think isn't quite addressed in Strange. Or rather, Strange doesn't know, right, the possibility or what how Monica is involved with the Captain Marvel kind of shenanigans that are going on there. Yeah, well, nice kind of farewell to Ansel.
Anson,
Ensign.
Anson, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a nice kind of farewell to that. I think our cinema had no idea who he was.
I know.
And because just so few people watched Inhumans as they should have.
I did because we had to review it or something, if I remember.
Yeah, it was just it was just I don't know. I don't remember getting past 3 episodes for the Inhumans thing.
That's so bad.
But like Black Bolt is such a cool character, and
Yes.
like nothing really has ever done it justice. I do hope in the future we get to see, at least they've addressed it, right? The possibility of the Inhumans.
Yeah, it's just very hard to do Black Bolt because of the fact that he doesn't speak. So
Agreed.
I mean, it takes a very good writer,
Yes.
and the whole thing to do it correctly which they didn't do
Yeah, and
yeah.
That and the fact like we don't have Medusa around, right? Like it's
Exactly.
there's no one there to kind of like translate for them, and that was something that they failed horribly in the Inhumans TV show as well.
Yes, agreed.
I mean, very notably, I guess like what we imagine from the Illuminati, of like 616 canon, right? Like in the comic books itself, obviously missing Black Panther, rest in peace.
Yep.
And things like that. But I think we definitely got an interesting kind of version of it.
Sure.
How that kind of ties into all the possibilities. And probably I'm guessing seeding the idea of an Illuminati within Stranger's head for the MCU at large. That's going to be interesting who forms that, right? I don't think we're getting that to the next phase, but still kind of a cool all around shout out to a very major part of the comic book series that fans have kind of been waiting for a while.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I personally loved every single one, including Anson Mount, because and we all know Anson Mount is a great actor
Same.
who's just undone by terrible directing, terrible writing
Agreed.
in the Inhumans TV
Yeah.
show. But like non MCU side note at all, I also sideways on a segue geeked out because it was Captain Pike and Captain Picard.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's my Star Trek fandom showing as well. The other kind of thing, since we're in spoiler territory, it's okay to review right now
Yeah.
that Wanda Maximoff is the villain in this film, the Scarlet Witch. How did you think Sam Raimi handled Wanda as the villain? Did it make sense? Did it work for you as an antagonist?
Majority of the time, I think it worked.
Yeah.
However, I feel that if you think a bit harder about her issue, right? Just like slightly harder, you realize there's a lot more ways to solve her problems.
Sure.
Than doing this whole destruction thing that she was going for. But however, I know I also I understand that the whole dark hole corruption thing. So that was the main reason why she did all these shenanigans. Was actually the dark hole was corrupting her.
Yeah.
Yes, as we've seen a Dark Hole do in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., in Runaways, it's quite a famous book in the MCU canon.
Yeah, and nobody can get away from its corruption once you start using it. And that was the problem, and so I'm fine with that. I think Sam Raimi did a good job in the horror part, when the reflections thing that they were going for. Oh, that was brilliantly done.
He made Wanda look genuinely scary.
Yeah. Only that now we know that Kamataj, that's the place, right? Doctor Stranger's.
Yep.
Kamataj is the worst defended fort in the world.
Yeah.
Got wiped out. I mean, again to show the power level between Wanda and the sorceress. That is it.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of, this is a very, very weird side note. That bull character, right?
Yep.
That's a Chinese god, right?
I don't know. I just thought it was a Minotaur.
If I remember correctly, it's a Chinese god of medicine or something like that.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I am not familiar. I was kind of curious about that as well.
Yeah. So, anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
It's basically this bull character, and then he basically has a transparent stomach. So when he eats anything, right, he can see the effects of it through his stomach and all that.
Oh.
I don't know why, for some reason, suddenly that came out in my mind when I was watching it.
I'm definitely gonna go and Google this after
Yeah.
we're done. That's
Don't they just
fascinating.
eat grass?
And so that's how the guy died. He ate a very thin, a very like a thin piece of grass, and as the grass entered, cut open his stomach into ribbons.
Oh shit. Oh
Oh
wow.
wow!
Damn. Okay.
Freaking random. I'm so sorry. Okay, that's
No, no,
that's
no.
it.
That's fine. Yeah. Like
Very, very nice. Yeah,
obscure
yeah. Yeah.
MCU lore.
As Hadi has already pointed out, of course, the power leveling of Wanda is probably the best thing that the movie does here.
Yes.
Her decimation of Kamar Touch, her destruction of Black Bolt. Sam Raimi in particular crafted a really gruesome way to kill Black Bolt, Mr. Fantastic,
Yeah.
and the rest of the heroes. It just goes to show, Wanda is leagues and leagues above these regular heroes. Like, what about you, Isa? Do you have similar feelings about Wanda as the villain for this film?
I think they've done enough just setting it up in WandaVision, right? Like the motivation for what she does in Multiverse of Madness is understandable for those of you who are going straight from WandaVision into that as well.
Mm,
I did wish there was a bit of a less reliance on her power coming from the dark hole. Like
mm,
we, as longtime fans, we know that a lot of Wanda's power is an innate connection with kind of the weave of magic and her kind of legendary place within the prophecies of being the Scarlet Witch.
mm,
So while it is understandable to level her through that and her attraction to the dark hole as an easy way to get the power that she needs in order to achieve her goals, I also felt like it did a bit of injustice to the fact that she's already by herself incredibly powerful. Um, which is kind of it's a very different and acceptable but very different look at the way that Wanda is here in the MCU as opposed to like our introduction or our shock into how powerful she is in the famous like No More Mutants moment, right?
yep, yep.
And this is a lot more clear cut. I think that it's going to be kind of fascinating how they unspool that because we are in kind of uncharted territory at the moment as far as
Mm,
Wanda and how she places within the greater MCU moving forward goes. But yeah,
mm.
I do feel like it was apt in the way at the end of the day it really took Wanda to stop Wanda.
Yes,
For
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I too wanted to wonder. Yeah.
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 It could have felt there were moments where I felt that it could have been a bit more dire, like the situation could have felt more dire before we reached that point, right?
Mm-hmm,
America's kind of like great, kind of brilliant inspiration to kind of bring the two wonders together in order to facilitate the closing of the the climatic closing was
mm,
cool for sure. But at the same time, I don't know if it's the way that Cumberbatch decided to play it. There were moments when it didn't feel like they were in as much trouble as they
mm,
should have been.
Yeah.
Specifically Doctor Strange and Wong, right? Like it felt like sure, they are that. I mean, there's plenty going on, but I don't know if they felt like they were in danger necessarily.
Mm.
And it's a multiversal problem as well. Like every time you introduce the fact that there's so many of you across so many kind of like different universes, like you can be replaced, right? And what was so specific and and special about our 616 characters, as we have established now thanks to Christine Palmer from the other world,
mm-hmm.
that is kind of important because we've seen several Doctor Strangers die in the course of this movie.
Mm. Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, a lot of people had some problems with Wanda turning villainous character motivation wise.
Mm.
I can only assume that those who had problems with it did not watch WandaVision lah. Or perhaps are unaware of her history in the MCU even because she did start out as a villain.
Yeah.
She does have a propensity to take shortcuts through magic
Mm-hmm.
or through villainous means. It is a thing in her that has been brought out through trauma. Um, some people felt that maybe she has already moved on from her grief after WandaVision.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that she moved on from her grief from Vision, not her children.
Yeah.
So this is her motivation for the film lah.
Yeah.
Oh, overall, complete overall thoughts about Doctor Strange 2. Let's begin with you, Hardy. Give me your thoughts and then your rating at the end. Okay, let's begin with Isa first, I guess.
Yeah, I think this has been a valiant effort
Yep.
overall, right? Like it's a difficult one to kind of tackle. It
Okay.
was ambitious and they swung fairly hard. And I think on most counts,
Yep.
it definitely, well, it hit on most counts. I think at the end of the day, I enjoyed it. It could have been so much more, but again, that's me as a fan wishing for so much more as opposed to what's actually feasible within the kind of runtime that we got, right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna give it a solid kind of like 6.5 out of 10. I
Okay.
do feel like I bumped up the score because there were some very interesting battle scenes,
Mm.
in particular, and like those were very well choreographed, extremely well rendered. I think the one that comes to mind, especially, is the kind of musical battle between the two strangers.
Yep.
Um, that kind of stood out for me. Which
Mm.
unfortunately is kind of under dispute right now. Someone saying that they stole it from somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah. So like a solid 6.5 out of me. It kind of sits in the middle of the pack, or just above the middle of the pack, as far as MCU releases have
Mm.
gone so far.
All right. Hadi, are you back? What are your thoughts?
Hi, sorry. There's a weird connection there.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. I couldn't hear you just now. What do you say again?
Oh, I
Yeah. Overall thoughts and then your rating for Doctor Strange
Okay,
2.
so raw thoughts. Again, enjoyed the movie. Loved the direction it was going.
Yep.
What it introduces for the MCU in the future.
Yep.
mm,
I'm just afraid of. I mean, okay. I think it met my expectations. It didn't exceed it, definitely.
mhm.
Mm.
They and I hope they do learn from the certain mistakes that they kind of made in this movie. You know, where it's bloated at times and all that. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm quite sure the MCU adjusts and it'll be fine. For the rating itself, I think I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I think Doctor Strange 2 suffers from a lot of terrible CGI. I didn't like that it looked like a CGI cartoon. A lot of the fight scenes. I think a lot of the MCU in general suffers from that.
Yeah.
On the plus side, Sam Raimi's directing offers a distinct signature that
Agreed.
most MCU movies do not have.
Yeah.
It takes a real auteur with vision, i.e., James Gunn, Taika Waititi, Ryan Coogler, etc. Only those people have been able to put a distinct stamp on the MCU film, and Sam Raimi does that. This feels like a Sam Raimi film,
Yeah.
not just another episode in the MCU. So I do like that. I like Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda. I think Doctor Strange 2 functions better as WandaVision 2 than as Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, those are the pluses and minuses. And this is a 7 out of 10 for me. Moving on to the small screen, let's talk about Moon Knight.
Oh, this was something I was looking forward to.
Sure. From the big screen to the small screen, we are moving on to Disney Plus's Moon Knight, and the latest of the MCU TV shows on Disney Plus. In Moon Knight, we follow Stephen Grant, played by Oscar Isaac, who is hearing voices and having vivid dreams that he soon discovers is related to sharing a body with a mercenary named Mark Spector. More than just discovering that he has multiple personalities, or DID, Stephen also discovers that his fractured mind is also somehow connected to ancient Egyptian mythology, specifically the vengeful god and defender of justice, Khonshu. What did you guys think of season 1 of Moon Knight? Let's begin with you, Hadi.
Okay, so I'm a huge fan of Moon Knight.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? We all know that from the comics, lah.
Yeah.
First of all, I was super excited when they casted Oscar Isaac, right? So I was already hyped as fuck. So I
Yep.
was looking forward to this, and I think that it definitely met all my expectations for this version of Moon Knight.
Mhm.
Yep.
I love how they address the his mental issues, right? His multiple personality disorder, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Brilliantly done, I feel, with all the cuts and all the blackouts and all that, right? I think it was done very well. Oscar Isaac is so good that it literally feels like, I mean, maybe he's not as good as Orphan Black.
Mhm.
The
Tatya Maslany.
Tatya
yes,
Maslany, yeah.
who is going to be
Yeah.
She-Hulk, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think her, where how she does her multiple personality kind of thing, But then again, hers is like 2 actors at once, lah, or something like that, right? Okay, so anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that Oscar Isaac does a really good job at the whole Stephen Grant and Max
Mark Spector.
Mark Spector, right?
Yeah.
Wow, what a fan.
It's okay. It happens.
My brain just farted there. Max Spector. Who the hell's Max Spector? So the whole Mark Spector and Stephen Grant thing, brilliantly done, I feel. I know that some comic book fans are like, oh no, that's Mr. Knight. That shouldn't be Stephen Grant, blah, blah, blah. I was like, relax, guys. It's still awesome to see, lah, right?
Yeah.
The whole Stephen Grant's version of the suit and how he got why the suit is like that. It was because he really thought of a suit. Love that. And him using the sticks, the Kali sticks, right, to fight.
Yeah.
Beautifully. I just wish there was a bit more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever it is, I love the exploration of Egyptian mythology in Moon Knight, which is quite a significant part of the Marvel universe, lah.
Yeah.
And it being represented so well done in this show, in this series. I really appreciate it, lah.
Nice.
I just wish that it was explored a bit more, lah. But then I get it, lah. It's a very compact season and they have so much things to explore and all that. However, we have to criticize. I think this was news, and it was already news weeks ago when people were criticizing the Mandarin that
you can even call it that.
That was like just gibberish, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The villain was spouting out.
Ethan Hawke, yeah.
Ethan Hawke, yes. Training Day. So anyway, Moon Knight
Also Northman.
and Northman, the king, his father. Brilliantly executed, I feel, for a debut season for this character. I feel that all the negatives are more of nitpicks for me. I didn't really have an issue with this series, though I've seen the reviews and some people do have quite huge issues. To me, those I didn't feel like it. Like I felt that it represented who and what the essence of Moon Knight is quite well. So I'm looking forward to see what they do with this character. I do like his supporting characters around him as well, especially Layla.
Played by Rami's sister in Rami.
Brilliantly done. And her version of the Scarlet Scarab. Sorry, spoiler alert. But whatever lah. Like that too lah. Yeah. So overall, I had fun.
Well, what about you, Isaac?
Overall, I did enjoy Moon Knight. I think it definitely picked up. I do remember you and I were talking kind of like in the beginning parts when it struggled in the first 2 episodes because we follow Stephen Grant, who is, just in general, and even in the comic books itself, kind of like the flattest of the personalities that we have.
The meekest.
The meekest of all, and therefore, the most kind of bland, right? I think that in and of itself, as I was talking to a couple of friends who had no kind of inkling about who Moon Knight was, it kind of did turn them off because they were struggling with the idea that how is this guy a superhero, right? You're telling me that this is one of your favorite superheroes. How does that kind of play out? Like, where's the badassery? Where's the costumes? Where's all of that? Where we're really just seeing Stephen Grant dealing with the consequences of being part of this strange trinity between him, Mark Spector, and Khonshu, right? With the as it went on, and there were more kind of like story elements included there, the reveal of Mark Spector, the reveal of the pact with Khonshu, like that definitely got better. The more characters we got, the more interesting it became. And I found that really cool. I think like Bendis's kind of like they've borrowed largely from King and Bendis's kind of like arcs here. For the TV show, which I really enjoyed, in particular the examining of Moon Knight's relationship with Egyptian mythology, which wasn't something that existed until I guess fairly recently in Moon Knight mythology in general. So I do like that they went with that. I think that opened a lot of avenues. There was one kind of thread that I thought they would go for because they went that direction that didn't get touched. But we'll go into kind of spoiler territory for that.
Okay.
Yeah, before we go into that. Overall, I thought it was good. I think the representation of DID was fairly treated and nuanced and well, they did it respectfully, right? I think the relationship between the two personalities and how that plays out, and how Layla as a friend and associate of these two different men
Yeah.
within the same body was also very well written and kind of well played out. Like it felt substantial. Like it didn't feel like, you know, one actor playing two roles. They did feel a bit more rounded out than just simply, you know, one actor, you know, trying their best to tackle two roles at one time. Um,
Yeah.
Fight choreography, I really enjoyed. The action sequences were great in some portions. Surprisingly, I think a lot of the CGI that we got here felt better than what we got in Multiverse of Madness here. And some of the really, really epic feeling battles were just that. Shout out to whoever did the music, because the music is dope, right? Especially the music for the opening sequence is just like, wow, it's kind of fire. And just kind of localized for that. I feel overall, Moon Knight did pretty well. I wanted more, which I think is a good sign. But I'm also concerned that Oscar Isaac isn't interested in coming back to do a second season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel free to go into spoiler territory. You wanted to bring up a minor spoiler just now. Isa, go ahead.
Yeah. So, because we were talking about like this entire idea of Moon Knight receiving their power from Khonshu, which is, I believe, King's Run, in which he delves into that, if I remember correctly. How he gets that power, right, is ultimately revealed within the comic book series to have come from Kang. Like Kang travels back in time to ancient Egypt, and somehow that power lands up with Moon Knight, right? Or at least the
Yeah.
earliest version of Moon Knight that's as possible. And I was thinking that maybe they'll find a way to kind of squeeze that
Oh
in,
wow.
just so, you know, to just kind of tie in everything. Moon Knight does feel fairly separate from the
Mm.
rest of the MCU at this point in time, and I believe it's intentionally so. So I
Mm.
understand if that's not something that they necessarily wanted to go do. um Overall, I mean, I think it's a good series, but it doesn't rank in the top like kind of TV stuff that we're getting from the MCU at the moment.
Yeah.
For
Yep.
me, it could have been more. It could have been, but that's just me speaking as a huge like fan of the franchise as a whole,
Mm.
right?
I mean,
But
there's
we
one
got
issue
some.
like with Mr.
Mhm.
Knight. I think was that Mr. Knight is more of like a detective sort of guy.
Mm,
Yeah, so that
yeah,
wasn't really shown here, lah.
yeah.
Okay. Hadi, your overall thoughts and rating for Moon Knight.
So like I said, I loved it, so I'm like giving it like 8.5, lah.
Ooh.
Nice. Okay. What about you, Isa?
Okay, I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Bastard.
As well, no, I mean, you know, it's kind of congruent with how I've been ranking most of the MCU stuff.
Mm.
This year at least. It's worth a watch for sure. If you love Moonlight, like this is just adds to kind of like how special that character is. What started out as kind of like Batman satire really kind of
Mm.
came into its own
Yep.
uniqueness within the MCU.
Yeah.
You know, and I wish there would be more, because like I think there's a lot of promise there. But we'll see if that even happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that Moon Knight had one great episode. Only one. It was episode 5. It was Asylum. It was the episode where Mark and
Oh, I like that one.
where Mark and shit, what's his name?
Steven.
Stephen, were trapped in the mental asylum together and addressing each other's mental and psychological trauma, how they came about to have DID and all of that. I thought that was very beautiful, beautifully written, beautifully shot.
Mhm.
Just a beautiful character study of of the root causes of DID.
Agreed.
Amazing episode. And then it follows up with, I think, a really underwhelming finale. Moon Knight is at its worst when it becomes a superhero show.
Yeah.
I do not. I felt that they should have done less action and less superheroics and focus more on the character of Moon Knight as Asylum vid lah.
Yeah.
I guess.
So I think overall I'm giving this even lower than Hardy, even lower than Isa actually. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10.
Bastard. I actually enjoyed that last episode with all the big, the big hoo ha with the fighting at the pyramids and shit. I was like, damn,
Yeah, I
that was
mean,
epic.
it was a grand spectacle to have like the fight in the foreground and then the giant fight
Yeah,
in the
no.
background, right?
Yeah,
Like it has that
exactly.
whole kaiju kind of mecha
Yes.
vibes, which I thought
Yes.
was cool. But I understand where,
But I know where Hidzir's coming from too.
yeah,
I
I know where
understand.
Hidzir's coming from, right? They couldn't find a balance,
Okay.
Yep.
when it came to that, and yeah.
Do you think like the
Oh,
Thor movie that's coming out will tie in a bit more of the god stuff?
Ooh,
I was expecting a post-credit scene where we were introduced to God, the God Butcher, killing maybe one or two Egyptian gods.
oh,
But we didn't get that.
Yeah, we didn't.
In the end, I thought it was fine. I actually think one of Moon Knight's greatest strengths is that it is standalone.
yeah,
Part of the problem with the MCU at this point is for new viewers, I guess, or for casual
They have
viewers,
to tie in everything.
there's a bit too much homework to do
Yes,
to
uh,
understand everything.
correct.
And Moon
yeah.
Knight requires no homework, which is probably I think its greatest strength
Yeah.
as a show.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I think we all gave positive reviews. Some less positive than others. Hadi was effusive. Mine is still positive. 6 out of 10 is a good review. So I enjoyed it overall. Next up, let's move on to the second season of a show that me and Hadi once reviewed back in
my.
Genre Equality 22.
Yeah.
It's called Undone. At the end of the superb, sublime 10 out of 10
Yeah.
first season of Undone. Go back to listen to Genre Equality
Yeah.
22 if you want to know why we loved it so much.
Oh my.
It was unclear whether Alma, played by Rosa Salazar, really had the power to bend space and time, or if she was dealing with mental illness. The final episode of the season captured such a beautiful sense of hope
Yeah.
in the face of adversity that it almost didn't matter whether Alma had truly been communing with the consciousness of her late father, Jacob Winograd, played by Bob Odenkirk. It was such a perfectly ambiguous end to a perfect season. There was nothing else on TV, in my opinion, that blended form and function quite like Undone season 1.
Hell
The
yeah.
show fuses stunning rotoscope
Yeah.
animation to evoke a world where nothing is fixed, existence is fluid, and the fantastical weaves itself around and through the mundane. And luckily for us, the show, which comes from the minds of Raphael Bob Waxberg and Kate Purdy, who earned their animation bona fides with the remarkable black comedy BoJack Horseman. They are back for a second season after a nearly 3-year hiatus. Okay, it's been 3 years, right? So I'm assuming a lot of you listeners may not remember what happened. If you don't remember, let me give you like a brief recap.
Yeah.
The series begins with Alma Winograd Diaz, a 20-something mess of a woman who, in the first season, woke up from a car accident to find out that she'd become unstuck in time and space. So Alma begins to question the nature of her reality, not sure whether she was channeling shamanistic magic or showing signs of schizophrenia. She was visited by visions of her long dead father, Jacob Bob Odenkirk, who tried to reach her to harness her powers so she can change her fate and rewrite her timeline for a better life. Meanwhile, her pragmatic sister Becca, her mother Camilla, and her boyfriend Sam tries to pull Alma back into the tangible world and come to grips with what they perceive to be her mental illness.
Yeah.
Cut to the start of season 2. Alma waits, in a strange limbo in a cave to find out whether her bid to rewrite the past in season 1 works. Turns out it did. Her consciousness has merged with another version of himself from a supposedly happier timeline where her father didn't die. But suffice to say, there's plenty more Winograd Diaz family drama on the way. Just because it seems like it's a happier timeline doesn't mean it is a happier timeline. And this season turns the trauma and the focus away from the father to the mother Camilla, exploring her secrets, the ones that she's been hiding from her adult children. If the first season was all about the void, the loss of a patriarch lives behind, the second season tackles the thorniness of mother-daughter relationships. And as Alma and Becca investigate this latest ancestral mystery, she discovers that she and her dad are not the only ones in her family who can go reality surfing. Hadi, you enjoyed season 1 as much as I did.
I
We
did.
both unanimously gave it a
Yeah.
perfect review. What do you think of season 2?
Very, very different.
Very, very. Yeah, I like that. It's very, very
Yeah.
different. They didn't just repeat what happened, right?
Yeah. This was I think I read a review where it was saying it was like an exploration of trauma, grief, and all that kind of things that from season 1, but then done in a way where it was like trying to. Well, it was very ambiguous in season 1. Season 2 was more like Alma coming to grips with her powers, I guess.
She has come to grips with powers.
Yeah.
Season 2 focuses on her sister who's
Exactly.
developing similar powers. So
Yeah.
she gets to be the guide now.
Exactly. So that's awesome.
Yep.
I loved the exploration of more of like her grandma
Mm.
and her mom, and like this, like everybody has all this generational trauma lah, basically.
Specifically on the matrilineal side, on the
Yes,
matriarchy side, yeah.
yes. So I loved all that they were doing.
Yep.
I feel that it really, um, it really captured. I mean, it really evolved what Undone, the possibilities for this kind of medium lah. Where
Yep.
it really, I think, if it took up to it really took it to another level. I feel in season two.
Yep.
And therefore, I was really surprised because I mean, remember how good season one was? I really didn't think that they could top it, lah.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and they really did in this season. It had so many moments where I felt, you could cry, like
Mm.
it brought you to tears, lah, in a lot of moments, and I really love that, lah. When a show does it effortlessly, lah, for me.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yeah.
in the end of it, I loved how they tied up everything, by episode 8.
Mhm.
Is there going to be a third episode, a season?
I personally don't know. I wouldn't mind it considering that I thought they shouldn't have done season two and they proved me wrong.
Yeah.
Undone season two is a bit like Fleabag season two, where I
Yes.
thought they should have ended, and then oh boy, you delivered something of
Something.
equal, if not greater quality.
Yeah.
So I trust Ruffalo Bob Waxberg. Um, because of BoJack Horseman, because
Mm.
of Tuca and Bertie and all that, he has earned so much of my trust. And I'm like, if you're gonna do season three, go ahead. I'm sure you'll find a fresh take on this one.
Yeah. And I think that,
Yeah.
again, the whole, like, by the end of the season, there's this whole, like, idea of, like, um devastation,
Mm,
but at the same time, it's also like that hopefulness, that, like, the ray of hope still lingers, right?
mm,
So that's brilliant. Like, again, it's kind of a repeat of season one again, lah. Yeah, by the
yeah.
end, yeah.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the use of rotoscoping
Mm.
particularly is very unusual for TV. It's a very tedious, painterly animation style that involves tracing over recorded footage.
Mm-hmm.
It's used to create a visual of a world constantly in flux. It's a style that you'll be familiar with if you've seen Richard Linklater's Waking Life or A Scanner Darkly and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Undone uses the technique as a means of stretching, twisting, and reforming reality.
Yeah.
It's like, the visuals are like Play-Doh, like empty hallways
Yeah.
become infinite mirrors, characters flicker between their childhood and adult selves,
Correct.
history quite literally bleeds through the
Ooh.
cracks of the current moment. And in the show's the walls between the past, present, and future, and between the concrete and the visionary, or what is imagined, are porous, and between A24's, quite acclaimed Everything Everywhere All at Once and Doctor Strange 2, as we've talked about, the multiverse is most definitely having a moment. But there's an intimacy to Undone that makes it uniquely suited to the small screen, and in my opinion, way better than those movies that I just mentioned.
Yep.
Alma isn't using her gifts to save the entire world. She's focused on getting to the bottom of mysteries within
Yes.
her own family, the lost histories and the intergenerational traumas
Yes.
that shaped her and have shaped her loved ones
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
into the people that they became. And a big part of what makes Undone so compelling herself, I think, for me, like, is Alma, because Rosa Salazar, she plays this, really charming, messy, flawed protagonist with a wry sense of humor and an intense yearning to be understood. And the second season tightens its focus on Alma and Becca's relationship as Alma pushes her more pragmatic sister to explore, her own time shifting abilities. The two fall into other people's memories, their own memories, and hop through time, sure, but their sibling dynamic feels grounded and naturalistic. And as in the best genre stories, the magic they do together is in service of the tale of a relationship and the relationships of their loved ones. As the creators did on BoJack, the
Oh.
writers and the writers and animators stretch the limits of animation to evoke the peaks and valleys of mental illness, generational trauma,
Yeah.
hidden shame, in a
Yeah.
way that live action cannot. And if you could undo your past mistakes, is what this season is asking. Right? If you could really undo your past mistakes, I mean, if you have the ability, wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
But where does it end? Every piece of trauma done to you is done by someone dealing with their own trauma and so on. Do you keep going further back and then further back and then further back to undo everyone's mistakes and mend everyone's relationship? Like, where does it end?
You realize it's
Or is
impossible.
it's impossible.
Yeah.
Or is it better and healthier to confront your past pain and suffering acknowledge them, and then forgive yourself, and then move on.
Yeah.
uh, that's the question of season
Yep.
two. But really, like, there's kind of no sense trying to explain Undone. It's very hallucinogenic.
Correct.
It's a family dramedy that's made to be experienced. And 3 years later, Undone is still an emotionally affecting and visually stunning series,
Agreed.
unlike anything else on TV.
Yeah.
Now it's time to give our ratings. Hadi, your final thoughts
I'm
and
sorry, I'm
ratings.
just going to give it a 10.
Yeah.
There's no way, because we give it a 10 the first season and it upped its ante, so 10 again.
Yes, yeah. I was briefly considering 9.5, but then I was like, no, this is a 10 out of 10 season.
Agreed.
If this isn't a 10, I don't know what's a 10.
Yeah.
And then again gets a 10 out of 10 season.
Yeah.
Man, these BoJack guys really hit
Really
it out of the
know
park.
what to do, right? To really like wrench out the emotions in us. We jaded
Mhm.
people, right?
Yep, definitely, man. Next up, let's turn it over to Isa, because we're going to be talking about Love, Death, and Robots,
Let's
Volume
go.
3, which Isa has seen. What do you think about Love, Death, and Robots, Volume 3, the animated anthology from Tim Miller and David Fincher?
Wow. Okay. Where do we begin? Where do
Which
we
one your
begin?
favorite one?
Oh, okay. That's the easiest. The last one is my favorite one.
Okay.
Like hands down, Jibaro is
Okay.
mind blowing. It is absolutely mind blowing.
It is.
The moment I finished it, I texted Hidzir and I was just like, I think my message literally like, what the fuck did I just watch? Right. I immediately proceeded to watch it a second time,
Mhm.
just because like it was overwhelming. Very
was.
honestly, the first time one was really, really overwhelming. But before we get into kind of like the episodes proper itself, I just want to talk about Love, Death, and Robots in general and how we felt over the last couple of seasons. I think
Yeah.
unanimously we enjoyed the majority of season one. At that point in
Mhm.
time, it was a new kind of well, not idea necessarily, but the franchise was new. We got a lot of very interesting kind of shots. We were wowed by a lot of the animation that was going back there, even if not necessarily all the stories for season one. Season two was kind of meh, right? That was kind
Yeah.
of our overall feelings for that.
I mean, still great artistry, and like in terms of like the detail to like certain CGI stuff that they did were quite mind blowing.
Yes, I agree.
Technically, it has never faulted on a technical level.
Just what I think the stories was a bit like bland.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the fact that we've gotten, it's basically roughly on average been about a 2 year gap between seasons, right? And how much the technology improves within those 2 years, or at least the products that we see, because these things are within development as the seasons get released, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of mind blowing, right? So season two, more technical triumph, less great storytelling, in our humble opinion, as per our last review. Season three, I think hands down is the best season we've gotten so far. It was very easy for us to just kind of like get into that. A lot of them were novel ideas, if not downright terrifying. In terms of like what they were trying to capture, again, just being wowed with some of the possibilities of what computer generated graphics can do for us in this day and age. What were some of you guys' favorite episodes outside of Jibaro? We'll save that just kind of for last.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, Hadi?
Okay, so for me, I really enjoyed the rat one, Mason's rats.
Oh, Mason's rat. Yeah, that was
It was like
cute.
Duck Pixar, I think. That's what that's I think how you can describe it, right? It's like
yeah, for sure.
the story is so simple, right? It's just a farmer trying to get rid of rats.
Yes.
Sentient rats, though.
Sentient rats, yeah. And you know, him and just the way that a simple story and just great graphics now, which I enjoyed, and just the little emotional resonance, where at the end even the farmer thought, oh, this was too much.
Yep.
Yeah, it had a very apocalyptic war movie feel.
Correct.
From the point of view of a farmer trying to get rid of pests.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful. It beautifully balanced the tone of the war movie apocalypse and just the humor of this farmer buying like insane gadgets,
Exactly.
like really insane mechanical gadgets to like get rid of the pest. Yeah, I like that one as well.
Yeah. And I think the other one that really stuck out for me was The Very Pulse of the Machine. Yeah.
That was my personal favorite. The Very Pulse of the Machine is my number one episode for this season.
Why is it your number one episode?
The writing and storytelling is very my vibe. I enjoyed like Jibaro on a visual level as a piece of art, certainly. But The Very Pulse of the Machine speaks to me more from a writerly standpoint. but it does to me what Undone does to me.
Yes.
Like I wasn't sure whether she was actually,
Correct.
this was a real planet talking to her, or whether she was hallucinating.
Agreed.
But either way, it works either way. It depends on you. Like I like the ambiguity of it,
Same.
and also the beauty of the animation.
Agreed.
Also, like, it's gorgeous to watch and ends on a particularly poetic note. A lot of the episodes feel like tone poems. Not all the episodes are actual poems. This episode is literally quoting poems.
Yes. Yes.
Like, yeah, that was my favorite episode.
Nice.
I think Isa's already mentioned Jibaru, right?
Yes.
But before we get into Jibaru, the other highlights include David Fincher's first attempt with animation in Bad Traveling.
Yeah.
This horrifying tale of a group of sailors accosted by a giant hungry crab. Yeah, there's also like a very Cthulhian Call of Duty type thing happening in episode 5.
Yeah.
Lots of good ones. There's a zombie short film, The Night of the Mini Days,
that was
that is
fun.
actually really enjoyable. A bird's eye view of an undead apocalypse,
Yeah.
showing a sped up version of events with an adorable art style that kind of looks like StarCraft. It's like a time lapse of our demise at the hands of zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really fun. Any other standout highlights that you would like to mention before we get into the final episode?
I think there's like a sequel, right, with 3 robots.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that
Three
was fun because at the end of the day, the cats were in masks. So yeah.
Yeah, I do feel
Yeah.
like 3 robots. I didn't quite really. It grew on me. I think with the sequel coming out, right? Like I would
Same.
watch a kind of mini series just with these 3 guys going about their shenanigans. Right?
I like it because it was exploring mankind's own hubris.
Yes.
So obviously, through the eyes of sentient robots, lah.
Yeah.
So I like that, lah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, the weakest was Team Kill. I think. It was. The art style was kind of like interesting, but the story wasn't.
That was more the art style was the where it was strong at, lah. Yeah, definitely. Because the story was super simple.
Yes. I do agree with Hidzir. I think like the very pulse of the machine felt like the most apt for this anthology series. I felt like that this is Love, Death and Robots at its strongest, right?
Agreed.
Bad Traveling, as much as I loved what Fincher did with that, and as good as the story is, felt a bit out of place with just the overall vibe of what Love, Death and Robots has been.
Is it because it's old timey?
Well, not necessarily. I think like I was expecting a lot more sci-fi from the series, right? And I think this is one of the first few times where
More fantasy.
Clearly, yes, more fantasy. It felt like a D&D game, like it was like straight up, right?
Agreed.
And I completely enjoyed that, but it did feel a bit out of place in terms of what Love, Death and Robots has sold itself to be up to this point in time, whereas the very pulse of the machine would be the epitome of that. Right, with like grand ideas, an interesting storyline, and just kind of pulling from the possibilities of like a future that is kind of rendered through what our computers can do.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed.
Swarm to me was also fairly interesting. I mean, some of it felt tropey. A lot of it felt very Matrix-esque. But there were moments in time where it was just quite wow, right? Like just like the ability to capture a hive kind of mind within this itself was cool, but also something that's not new, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which kind of brings us, I guess, to the standout, whether or not it's your personal favorite. It is very hard to ignore Jibaro. It is by far the strangest and most visually shocking, I guess. I don't think shocking even quite cuts it. The most visually prominent of anything that has ever appeared on this anthology series in its 3 seasons. What did you guys feel upon first watching Jibaro?
I mean, when I was looking through, when I first watched it, I was thinking, okay, like it's a story of like conquistadors, like in the middle of like the Amazon or something, right? And then like just this mystical goddess of the river or whatever, lah.
Yeah, siren.
Siren like fucks them up, lah. But then, like I said, the story was simple enough, but it was that visual style, of them. Wow, how they drew the everything from the conquistadors to the goddess, the siren itself, and that and the brutality of it at certain points. I was like, wow, not bad. Really, really visually engaging throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hits, how about you? Like,
Mm.
what was kind of your like first take on Jibaro as you were watching the first time around?
I thought it was a beautiful piece of art, in terms of on a technological level, on an artistry level. This is probably the height of Love, Death, and Robots in terms of artistry.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was just stunning to behold. Not quite understanding what I was watching, but being entranced anyway.
Yeah.
It felt like this really uh, guttural rave that
Oh,
I was involved in.
yeah.
It really felt like I was like high on something and on drugs and
Yeah.
like in a rave at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And just like going with it. Yeah, it was an experience to me. It was an experiential masterpiece. If not a storytelling masterpiece, at least it's an
Yeah.
experiential masterpiece.
Yes,
Mhm.
I totally agree with you. I think story wise, there isn't. It's a simple kind of story, right? Like, and it's nothing like brand new necessarily. The
Yeah,
visual style is obviously super obvious, like from the way that they decided to color everything, from the kind of like makeup and costuming that was done. If we can call it makeup and costuming, given that most of it is CGI anyway.
yeah.
What caught me the most, and I only realized this upon watching it the second time. I think I found it incredibly overwhelming, just because there were so many sensorial cues at the same time,
Mm,
right? Like from the jitters that they kind of worked into the movement pieces, from the
Mhm.
very dance like movements of the well, I guess actors and creatures as well. But for me, with the kind of standout thing, or rather, what was most salient to me upon watching it
mm,
the second time
Yeah.
was the sound design, right? And just like the
mm.
way that they decided to play with this entire, yeah, sure, we have a,
The
you
deaf
know,
guy.
the deaf knight, um
Like
that's there.
DEAF, huh? Not
Yeah,
deaf, huh?
Mm.
we're talking, hard of hearing, not
Not
artists.
dead.
uh but yeah, and how they played with that, I think had a bigger impact on me the first time around I watched it than I knew and in the
Mm.
moment, right? Because it's so visually stunning, that you kind of forget that, like, that only sits at the back of your mind and you kind of receive that passively.
Yep.
And I put my headphones on for the second time round just to kind of like be a bit more immersed in the entire experience. And it's genius. It really is quite amazing, the things and the detail and the effort that they've put into what I think a lot of people watching Jibaro may not necessarily focus on, given everything that is presented on the screen itself.
Mm.
Whether it's like kind of muting things down, whether it's like the very kind of like off kilter score that they're using kind of very very subtly in the background, to the strange screams and the strange like groans that are being emitted within the context of the story and the struggle and the conflict that's going on screen. Like
Yep.
all of that forms its own, um it forms its own story, right? Like you could possibly just listen to Jibaro without watching it and achieve a similar effect, and to
Mm.
have those two things like kind of stacked together, to me, was a lot. It was a lot in maybe not necessarily a good way, but a
Mm.
lot in a way that has been the most unique thing I've experienced in a while in an animated short.
Yep.
And for that reason, like, it is definitely the standout, while may not necessarily my personal favorite. If
Mm.
anything, I'm gonna say, if you want something to kind of like blow your mind, right, on
Mhm.
multiple levels, Jibaro is it. If there's one thing that
Mm.
you watch Jibaro, but season 3 is definitely worth catching.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Overall, I'll rate season 3 an 8 out of 10. Which I think is the highest I've rated any of the seasons. What about you, Hadi?
Oh, that's a good one. 8 out of 10. Yeah, I agree with that. I'll give it 8 out of 10. Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
8.5 lah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 as well. I feel like there was only one kind of weak episode here.
Mm.
Technologically, like, leaps and bounds yet again. I think, like, in Vaulted Halls on Tomb, the opening sequence had me believing that it was live action, which is
Mm.
nuts. It is absolutely nuts. As they kind of like did that kind of zooming in onto the squad, I was like, damn, that
Yep.
looks so fucking real. But
Mm.
yeah, I am very happy that season 3 has become stronger as it's gone along, because with season 2 I was worried that this was kind of not going anywhere,
Yeah.
or they were
Yep.
kind of resting on the laurels of the fact of a extremely popular season 1. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see. I don't see. I mean, I definitely see this anthology series continuing, given the kind of work that has been put out and how well received it's been so far. I'm hoping
Mm.
that the likes of like Jabaro and the very pulse of the machine will continue to inspire people who are going to do like future episodes of this to push the boundaries of what's possible visually, aesthetically, and conceptually.
Yep.
Mm.
Because like at the moment, like I don't there hasn't been anything, I guess, as uniquely varied as what's been presented in season 3 of Love, Death, and Robots.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yeah. Very high ratings from all of us. Next up, let's move on to the big screen, where I'll be talking about The Northman,
Ooh.
Yo.
which is the third film from art house auteur Robert Eggers. The Northman is a savage and ferocious 10th century Norse revenge epic
Let's go.
that is bound to leave viewers quite awestruck.
Mm.
It begins in 895 AD
Yep.
in the kingdom of King Aurovandil, played by Ethan Hawke. We find a ruler returning from battle to
Yeah.
initiate his 10-year-old son Amleth
Mm-hmm.
as heir to his throne.
Mm-hmm.
However, soon after the hallucinatory ceremony, which was conducted by William Dafoe,
Yeah.
Jaime the Fool, who plays the court jester slash shaman, Arambadil is betrayed by his brother Fionir, played by Claes Bang, who murders him and claims his wife Queen Gudrun,
Mm-hmm.
played by Nicole Kidman. What a cast!
Yep.
Amazing.
Claims his wife for himself. The young prince flees to sea, vowing to avenge his father
Mm-hmm.
and save his mother
Mm-hmm.
and kill Fionir. You cut to 930 AD, where the prince has grown into a muscular and monstrous Viking berserker,
Yeah.
played by Alexander Skarsgård, who is prowling the lands of Eastern Europe, pillaging Slavic villages. He is calcified by rage. Amleth is like a legendary terror right now, vacillating between animistic ruthlessness and moments of pensive humanity.
Mm-hmm.
In the aftermath of a particular raid, Amleth kind of wanders trance-like and encounters a seer, played by Bjork, who tells him that his time for vengeance has come.
Mm-hmm.
Happenstance brings Amleth into the clutches of Fionir, who has lost the throne and is now running a farm in the wilds of Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
Disguising himself as a slave, Amleth infiltrates the farm, discovering that his mother is now married to Fionir and has borne him a son. With the help of fellow slave Olga, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who is also a sorceress, Amleth begins to exact his brutal, bloody, horrific retribution. Fans of Aggas's small-scale features will be surprised by the scale of this historical saga.
Mm-hmm.
But while this is his most accessible film to date, I think the director's unconventional sensibilities, which he honed in The Witch and The Lighthouse and stuff, it
Yeah.
really makes this more than just your typical historical epic.
Mythological epic.
Yeah. The Norman is far more ambitious
Yeah.
than his previous films, but he remains a stickler also for historical detail,
Yep.
with the sets and costumes and artifacts and the way of life designed to be as period accurate as
Mm-hmm.
possible. But amidst the meticulous attention to the muddy, bloody, grime-caked authenticity, Eggers is still keen to present the religious beliefs and myths of the time
Yep.
as matter of factly as his settings, conditions, and culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Northman's flights into the mystical are steeped in Viking and Nordic beliefs of the
Yep.
time, and the fantastical interludes include Amleth communing with an astral projection, fighting an undead skeleton to claim a magic sword, chatting to the disembodied head of an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
These moments are allowed to be fanciful and thrilling, but like the witch and the lighthouse, they aren't supernatural to the characters.
No.
Things are just as real as the harshness of the cold or the blood spilled in warfare. And these things are real to them, so they are real to us.
Mm-hmm.
To ensure fidelity, Eggers teamed up with Icelandic novelist and screenwriter Sjon to dig into Viking history, culture, sagas, poems, and Danish legends. And the particular legend that he's drawn upon is the legend of Prince Amleth,
Yeah.
which famously became the source of Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Yep.
Hamlet is an anagram of Amleth. So if you find the story familiar, this is why.
Yeah.
But the Northman is not Shakespearean.
No.
No.
It is proto-Shakespearean.
Yes.
Amleth is a feral beast with a singular goal without any of Hamlet's angst. And the story is decidedly unromantic about the era. It disregards any classical ideas of morality or heroism.
Yeah.
The Northman lives and breathes like the old epics, and I don't mean old Hollywood's cartoonish depictions of warriors with shiny helmets,
No.
or even the plays and the literature of the Renaissance, but the truly ancient tales to which Eggers is paying deep respect.
Yeah.
In dramatizing the internal tug of war of Ambler, for example, the grim fated destiny and the opportunity for a more mundane life as a farmer, Eggers sort of indulges in both the grand folklore of the Viking Age and the commonplace reality that shapes the people living in it. Successfully creating an uncivilized odyssey that feels grounded in the demands of civilization. It has an outstanding ensemble, outstanding cinematography. The actors brave bitter shooting conditions and despite outlandishly accented dialogue, but it all makes sense in the context of the film. There is an unparalleled immersion into this intensely alien world, right down to a naked final battle between Fionnual and Amleth atop an active volcano that will make your jaw drop. The Norman is truly a staggering feat of filmmaking. It's primordial and punishing and blood soaked with raging testosterone. There is no like wokeness to this film at all. There is no like commentary on toxic masculinity. It is just masculinity, especially 10th century Viking masculinity. um, it is interesting to see, in an era where big budget historical epics have fallen by the wayside to more vaporous superhero adventures, it's great to see indie filmmakers like David Lowery, who recently did The Green Knight, and Robert Eggers sort of unexpectedly revitalize this historical epic genre. I dug this. Heidi, you saw this as well, right?
Yes.
What do
Oh
you
my
think?
god.
Yeah,
This was so freaking awesome.
yeah,
Like I agree with everything that you said.
yeah.
So beautifully filmed, so beautifully told the story of Amleth, right?
Mm,
That fight scene at the volcano, holy shit.
yeah.
Like really. And the historical accuracy, super well done, but I really love the homages to the myth of the of these people lah.
Mm.
The Scandinavian people lah.
Yeah,
Uh,
Valkyries just popping up out of
yeah,
nowhere.
right.
Yeah,
Everything, and
yeah.
because okay, so recent, I think all of us are quite familiar with Viking lore, right?
Mm.
Through comics, through video games, through shows lah.
The show Vikings. Yeah.
Exactly, which was also quite a realistic portrayal to an extent lah.
To an extent, like they were wearing biker leather and stuff.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
costuming
That's why I
was
said
quite.
to an extent.
And it was a history channel. Like they didn't have the budget for this kind
Exactly.
of
And
thing.
still, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
still a very compelling tale, though. And
Mm-hmm.
so to see this on the big screen, right, and how visceral it was, it was such a lovely thing. Honestly, Alexander Skarsgård was born to play this guy. Like,
Mm.
just seriously, like he was put on this earth to play Amleth, and I think he did such a great job. And great stuff by Robert Eggers, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and 100%. You everybody needs to watch this. I mean, I hate the whole like commentary because this became a problematic film. Like a lot of people, a lot of this woke shit stuff, started going against this film, lah, saying that it was promoting like toxic masculinity and shit like that.
A celebration of it is
Yeah,
what they were saying.
I'm like,
But to counterpoint that, like this was 10th century masculinity, especially
exactly.
among Vikings. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, because they say, oh, all these white supremacist groups are taking this film as, what? So what? Like, that's not the point. The point of the film is to showcase the historical accuracy of that time. I mean, to an extent, lah, also.
Mm.
But to showcase, to how much a certain kind of lost civilization, in a sense,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But again, yeah, I rate this film like a 8.5 out of 10, lah.
I'll rate this an 8 as well. I
Yeah.
think Isa is watching it next week, so yeah, we're psyched for this, man.
Mhm.
Next up, Hadi. Sorry to do this to you, but
no.
Let's
since
go, Hadi.
you're an avid player of the game Halo, so can you tell us a bit about season 1 of Halo?
Fuck this TV series. Seriously, it was made for what? For who?
For you, my friend.
Oh my
Or at
god, it
least they
was
thought so, lah.
so bad. Like you have such okay, I mean okay. So Halo has established a law in the video game scene, right? So over 6, 7 games.
Yep.
And so the law is very well established among fans. I wouldn't say I'm like
Mm.
a super huge fan, but I'm a fan enough to know enough about the law and enough to
Mm.
know about the main character, Master Chief.
Yep.
Right? or Master Chief John lah.
Yeah.
I'm just, this is one of those, like, if you really feel like it's a money grab, this show has, I feel that it placates no one, because if let's say you're just someone who doesn't know anything about Halo and watch this, you'll be like, so this is just another tropey sci-fi bullshit thing lah.
Yep.
You know, there's no redeeming. I'm sorry, but there's really no redeeming qualities about this show.
Yep.
Except, okay, perhaps the costume design, I would say that was top notch. Very accurate to the games. Okay, I'll give it that.
Okay.
However, everything else can go fuck itself. Like
Yeah.
the way that the Spartans are basically the heroes of this, well, kind of like the super soldiers, okay?
Yep.
How they were portrayed and all that was so mishandled. The law was so mishandled on all fronts. The acting was so bad. Like, I can forgive you if your acting was good or your script was good also.
Yeah.
But they didn't have that. It was so tropey. It was so like phone it in kind of sci-fi script. It was so generic, you know. And that was the main thing lah. Like, if you really were trying to get people to come and watch it without having to play the video games, right? No one would. And there's so many unlikable characters. Like, I couldn't root for anybody. There's like this secondary character, this girl that wants to free her homeland and shit, right? She turned out to be the worst character in the entire series. Every time I watch her parts, I like had to grit my teeth and watch through it, you know. Until the last 2 episodes, right? I literally just skipped through her entire storyline because I couldn't give a fuck anymore. And I think they miscast Master Chief himself. Okay, why? Yes and no, because when I say they miscast him, is because they took off his helmet in the first episode. You know, like how Mandalorian waited very long before he took off his helmet.
Yep.
Yeah, that is something that Master Chief identity surrounds. Like, he's, you know, but then also that's because they want you to be the play, you know, on the ground, whatever lah. They want you to be Master Chief in the game, so that's why they don't remove the helmet. But because of that, you know, there's this mystery surrounding who Master Chief really is lah. And he turns out to be just this weird, emotional psycho lah. I don't know how to explain, but this was such a bad series. I'm so sorry. Halo, I'm just going to give a rating of like a 0.5 out of 10.
Okay, yeah.
I give the 0.5 is because really the costume designs are on point. And the ship CGI, the law accuracy is there, but they just didn't know how to make use of it.
Yeah.
So let's say it better. So let's move on.
All right. So Halo should have been the Mandalorian. Instead, it ended up being Boba Fett.
Exactly. Actually, worse.
No. But what you're saying, like, you know, he should have, you know, kept his helmet on and everything, and Boba Fett just refused to put on his helmet. And then you discover who Boba Fett is. He ended up being like this weird guy who's incompetent at everything.
Correct, exactly. You know what? Yeah, that 100%. Okay, good. Yeah. Agree.
Okay. Next up is quick hits. Well, I'll quickly run through some of the films and TV shows my co-host has not been able to see.
Sure.
First off, and my favorite of quick hits is a movie called X. Which is a horror film. X is about a pawn shoot that goes terribly wrong and becomes the scene of a gruesome massacre in rural backwoods Texas. A24's X feels like a throwback to old school grindhouse horror, slicing and dicing through a cast of very likable 1970s porn stars and filmmakers. But amidst a pile of gnarly kills and nauseating gore, this grungy and dirty film somehow also manages to strike a smart balance between exploitation and empowerment. There's tension, a proper fleshiness that makes the audience wince, and the actors seem to be really enjoying themselves. It's an entertaining and repugnant, I mean repugnant in a good way, but beyond that, this is a slasher film that moves beyond simple slaughter. The director expands into broader discussions of religion, sexuality, and gender in America, specifically in 1970s America, where, you know, cultural mores were changing, therefore making X a slasher joyride with something more to say. This is a 8.5 out of 10 for me.
Nice.
Next up, I'm going to talk about Vampire in the Garden, which is the new anime coming to you from Wit Studio via Netflix. It's another anime about the last remnants of humanity hiding from monsters by building a giant wall around them. In the world of Vampire by the Garden, humanity is displaced from the position of dominance when vampires show up and defeats them in a great war. It's Attack on Titan, essentially. The humans live in a small-scale city-state protected by a massive wall of light. It's become the last stronghold for the human race, etc., etc. This show really sucks in every way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's less said about it, the better.
All right.
Do not watch the show. It is a 3 out of 10 for
All
me.
right.
Next up, I'm going to move on to Amazon Prime to talk about Night Sky. Night Sky is a series centering around Franklin and Irene York, who are played by J.K. Simmons and CC Spacek, who star as an older couple who years ago discovers a chamber buried in your backyard, which inexplicably leads to a strange deserted planet. They've carefully guarded their secrets ever since, but when an enigmatic young man enters their lives, the Yorks' quiet existence is quietly upended, and the mysterious portal/chamber that they thought they knew so well turns out to be much more than they could have ever imagined. As expected, Spacek and Simmons are a true highlight, with their relationship feeling lived in and soulful. These two are actors of our times, more than just my generation, the previous generation as well. These two are fantastic actors. But beyond the, I would say, S-tier acting showcase, this show is very dull and poorly paced and frustrating.
Okay.
This could have been a really, really great 90-minute movie, but instead it's 8 hours long. So that's why it's a 4 out of 10 for me. Next up, I'm going to move on to The Time Traveler's Wife. Is HBO's adaptation of Audrey Niffenegger's incredible 2003 sci-fi novel, The Time Traveler's Wife. It hopes to do justice to a great story after a 2009 movie starring Rachel McAdams failed miserably. The series follows the story of a marriage unmoored by a husband's tendency to skip through time. The husband, Henry, is unstuck in history, vanishing from linear time to pop up at key moments of importance. This is what leads his romance with his wife, Claire, to its sense of destiny, as in adulthood, he was transported to meet her as a child. So she was seemingly fated to be an important figure in his life. It's also what gives the marriage its air of doom. Henry cannot meaningfully be present when he's always moments away from being snatched into the past. And the fact that Claire has met Henry at various ages, but never as a senior citizen, suggests a premature end lies ahead. The tragedy and swoon-worthiness of the novel seems perfect to capture the mainstream. Sadly, the show is even worse than the movie. It is clunky, stupid, lacks momentum, and features dialogue that would make
worse than the movie.
Yeah, it's worse than the movie.
wow.
And it features dialogue that will make Twilight seem like it was written by Aaron Sorkin.
No.
This is truly one of the worst series I've ever seen. And a great guidebook for any pedophiles who want to groom young girls. So yeah, this is a 0 out of 10 for me. Yeah, very few shows have earned a 0, but this really earns
Oh my
its
god.
0.
Okay, got it.
To cap off our regular portion of the episode, Hadi, let's talk about season 1
I'm
of
back
Star Trek
again.
Picard. Yeah, you're back again.
Picard. Okay, actually, you know what? Picard season 2. No, it still sucks. So
Oh, sorry, season 2 of Picard. My bad. Yeah.
It still sucks. Okay. So this time is the whole time traveling thing, lah. Okay.
Yep. Q is back, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
For what I also don't know, lah. Also, I mean, the whole travelers thing, also the whole from Star Trek, TNG, right? Where it was just one guy, I think. Now we are introduced to the whole society of them.
Yep.
And so that's a cool little cameo because Wesley Crusher comes back. And to identify, I mean, he's now a traveler, lah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool because it was already hinted in TNG. Yeah. So that was like a cool callback and all that. But apart from that, I would say that Patrick Stewart as Picard, there's can't go wrong in terms of the acting, lah. So you can't fault him for just. Okay. You know what? I read somewhere. I read a review where they called it the NCIS Starfleet.
Okay.
I think that's the perfect way to describe season 2. Yeah. So there's a I think it's a slight improvement from season 1.
Okay.
I sometimes dig the whole I dig the whole like traveling back in time kind of thing. And then they stayed there for quite a while to solve certain issues with the whole launch of Europa and all that stuff, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's a improvement, but it's still something that you can miss. It still doesn't pique my interest as a Star Trek fan, lah.
What is worse, Discovery or Picard?
Discovery, sadly, lah.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
okay. I because I've not followed up on Discovery season 4 and Picard season 2, so I wasn't sure which one was
yeah.
worse by now.
I would say that Picard right now is a little better than Discovery, but both still shitty. Thank God for Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Let's just say
Which
that.
we'll be talking about in 2 months. Once the season
I can't
ends.
wait.
Can't wait. I know I've written my review. It's gonna be a good one. I love Star Trek Strange New
Yeah.
Worlds. It's a return to form. And if you're a Trekkie who really loves Star Trek, the classic Star Trek, the formula of just the good old schoolness of Star Trek, Strange New World brings that.
Mm.
And to top it all off, the Orville was also back next
Oh,
week.
nice. Oh,
Uh
sorry. Before, one more last thing about Star Trek Picard, right?
sure.
Like, why is Starfleet still calling Picard to solve their shit? Like, can't they? Don't they have other like younger guys who have Okay, never mind. Anyway, like this guy's a freaking what? Like he's 90 years old already. Like stop calling him back to help you.
Yeah. I know this is a very like niche joke, but I saw someone write on Twitter that Starfleet is basically WWE right now. They're just calling back guys from the 90s.
Agreed. Yeah.
Picard is your Goldberg or whatever.
Yeah.
Like just bring us part timers because we can't make new
So
stars. And
the best Star Trek show Orville is coming back lah.
the best Star Trek show, Orville, is coming back, and Strange New Worlds is actually sort of redeeming the Star Trek franchise as well.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in a couple of months.
Nice.
To cap off this episode, this is the first installment of something I want to call Quick Hits Classics,
Ooh.
where I talk about I'll be recommending what is in my opinion some of the greatest films or TV shows that we've not had a chance to talk about on genre
Sure.
equality. Great genre from past years.
Mhm.
The first one I'll be recommending is Rosemary's Baby.
Oh wow.
AKA, in my opinion, the original A24 horror film
Wow.
that predates A24 by over half a century. If you think that A24's art house, slow burn, psychological horror is something they invented, let me tell you, it's not.
Mhm.
That style is a throwback to great movies like this one
Mhm.
from the mid '60s. This was Roman Polanski's first American feature,
Yeah.
and it stars Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes
Mhm.
as a likable young couple who move into a flat in a rundown New York building. Unbeknownst to them, the building has a sordid history of violence involving political corruption, satanic cults, and cannibalistic serial killers.
Mhm.
The first hour of the movie is pure amazing character building. As we spend time with the character in their mundane day to day, we get to see them love each other. They're personable, they're funny. It's so good that you forget that you're supposed to be watching a horror movie. I could easily watch a naturalistic series about this young married couple just doing things and having conversations. All these serves to get us invested in these people. It's the kind of character building that horror movies abandoned from the 70s all the way to the 2000s in favor of gore and shock.
Mm.
We see that the husband is a struggling actor, unable to get his big break, and we're invested in their quest to have a baby. Once they become friends with their overly friendly elderly neighbors who may or may not be witches,
Mhm.
their fortunes suddenly take a turn for the better. They're given good luck charms and food and drinks, as housewarming presents. All these things smell a little weird because they're filled with unknown herbs and roots their neighbors have grown. Suddenly, the husband becomes a successful actor. A role he desperately wants suddenly opens up when his competitor mysteriously goes blind. Rosemary, the wife, gets nauseous and dizzy after eating a chocolate mousse.
Mhm.
Suddenly, she passes out. She has a dream that she's tied down by a satanic cult, which includes a new member, her husband.
Oh.
She's then raped by a demon
Yep.
or a demonic looking creature.
Mhm.
The next morning, she's pregnant.
Yep.
All their dreams seem to be coming true, but Rosemary suspects that something strange and unnatural is going on.
Yeah.
But she has no solid evidence of anything. The idea that her neighbors are Satanists and that her husband has joined them for career success and that she's been poisoned and drugged by magical herbs all seem ludicrous to her friends. She even gets a prestigious new doctor to take care of her pregnancy, courtesy of their generous neighbors. And this doctor gaslights her at every turn, explaining away every unnatural sickness, every unnatural turn as prepartum hysteria.
Yeah.
Her friends, who recommend that she get a second opinion or find a new doctor, they wind up dead in suicides or suddenly fall into deep comas. Up until the end, we are never actually really sure if Rosemary's suspicions are true or just paranoia.
Yeah.
And that's the brilliance of this film. It's pure thrilling suspense because the audience is just like Rosemary. One minute we are sure something is sinister and supernatural is going on.
Mhm.
The next minute we think it's just coincidence and we are letting our imaginations run wild. The movie gaslights you, the viewer, just like Rosemary, because I was gaslit the whole way. I wasn't sure.
Uh,
Hey, is this real? Is this a coincidence? Outside of Rosemary's dream sequences where she gets raped by the devil and
mhm,
becomes the subject of arcane rituals, there's nothing overtly supernatural going on. But the book that this is based on and Polanski's expert movie ground their fear of the demonic in very common anxieties of first-time mothers. Everyone Rosemary rants to dismisses her conspiracy theories as the typical overreaction of someone about to have a child. And in fairness, what she's saying does sound ludicrous. Rosemary's Baby isn't a horror movie in the typical things that go boo sense. Polanski, who also wrote the screenplay following the novel, is more interested in creating a creeping sense of unease by making everything seem plausible. Nearly every supernatural incident in Rosemary's Baby can be read as a dream
mhm,
the heroine is having, exacerbated by her ordinary worries about an insensitive husband who's always ducking out for suspicious reasons, or about intrusive neighbors who aren't shy about sharing their opinions, or about doctors with all kinds of weird, unconfirmable advice on diet and health, for expectant mothers. It matters too that all this is happening in New York, a city that's already full of kooky characters and old buildings with their own twisted histories. Stuff that is weird elsewhere is normal for New York,
mhm,
and it matters because it's taking place in the mid 60s, where Rosemary falls between a generation of submissive housewives and a generation of self actualized feminists. She's
mm,
caught in the middle of that generational gap there. That all adds to an added layer of subtext. This is a horror movie by definition, but it plays more like
yeah.
a thriller that we are held to a limited point of view, depicting protagonists who are alone and unsure of whom to trust. It's a horror about gaslighting, corruption, isolation, and the feeling of not being believed. This is such a sublime and sophisticated work, drawing upon primal fears and imagery and hiding all of it in a modern, rational context. This is one of my favorite horror films of all time.
Mm.
I urge you to watch it if you haven't. Have either of you seen Rosemary's Baby?
Long
Yes,
time
I
ago,
have.
maybe like 20 years ago.
Wow, you were very young then, lad.
Yeah, I was in secondary school.
Oh damn.
I
Nice.
think primary. I would say like sec 2 or sec 3. I think it was like on that time was LD.
Yeah, later this
Oh
way
damn damn.
you had to flip it over.
Yeah, and we had side A, side B, right? So, but because the movie was quite long, I think there was like two LD. So like side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I remember it scaring the shit out of me when I was young. But I
Mm,
think I'm gonna rewatch it after. I mean, your little soliloquy there, right? I,
nice.
I feel that I'm gonna. No, no, I really appreciate it. Like, I really want to watch it again.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. What about you, Isa? When did you first see Rosemary's Baby?
Ooh, early 20s, I would say, so about a decade ago, probably.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I do remember it being heavy to watch,
Mm,
Yep.
right? And it's not so much about what's being shown, but just like everything that's kind of going on in the background of it, of the story. Not so much what's on screen necessarily. There is something extremely malicious about the way it unfolds in all the mundanity
Mm,
that you see, right, or that you participate in as an audience member, and like that
yep.
small glimpses of horror is enough to kind of like run a through line through the entire film that is
Mm-hmm.
unnerving to say the least. That much
mm.
I remember from seeing it 10 years ago.
Yes. Yeah. And to cap off quick hits classics, I have one more
Sure.
recommendation. This one is called 5 centimeters per second.
Yeah.
Um, like everyone else, I've seen Your Name, I've seen Weathering with You, but I've only just recently caught one of Makoto Shinkai's earliest films, 5 centimeters per second. And to be honest, it's actually my favorite of his
Oh.
works. It's a compact hour-long film that is an anthology of three short stories following childhood friends Takaki Tsuno and Akari Shinohara who are in love. Unfortunately, they are separated when both of them move to different faraway areas. The three stories follow them through many years into adulthood and deal with the mundanity and the harsh reality of long distance relationships. You already know that Shinkai is great at investing you into stories of unfulfilled love
Mhm.
and painful yearning,
Yeah.
but this one is the realest and most authentic one because it doesn't involve any fantasy or sci-fi distractions.
Mm.
This is too real. You feel like this could really happen, and this has probably really happened. This is a very naturalistic story. They both grew up, they both grew farther apart, not just geographically but emotionally as well. The emotions portrayed in the film are subtle and nuanced and evolve with age. It's so incredibly bittersweet and beautiful and heartbreakingly truthful about long distance relationships. So yeah,
Okay.
go catch 5 centimeters per second on Netflix if you want to. It's only 60 minutes long. It's a very short film. made out of 3 short stories. Isa, you've seen this before, right?
Yes. It was my first discovery of Makoto Shinkai.
Oh wow.
And it was one of those really kind of random things that I had no idea who he was. It was a couple of years after it came out, and I was just
Okay.
browsing, one of those specialized anime websites where you can watch things where you want to.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, what's this? This is fairly interesting. I read the synopsis. I thought, okay, this is kind of cool. It's about an hour. I have the time. Let's go and watch that.
Okay.
I was blown away. I was blown away. So like upon hearing him blow up at the release of Your Name,
Yeah.
right? And like finally kind of tying it because it was one of those things I watched and it was like deeply meaningful and fairly impactful, but I kind of forgot it because Shinkai hasn't really been like on my radar until Your Name came out again.
Yeah.
When that happened and I connected the dots, I was like, you know what? Everything that you see that is kind of magic in Weathering with You and in Your Name, right? That is perfectly kind of like elucidated in 5 centimeters per second. Right. And it
Mm.
doesn't require the fantastical. It doesn't require any sort of like strange turn or any sort of like ex machina kind of like intervention in order to drive it forward. It's straightforward. It's
Mm.
great storytelling at its core, and it's very essence, right? And I can see why he has made it as big as he is, because like it there are very early signs of that in his early work.
Yes, definitely. That wraps it up for Genre Equality 54. Check out all our recommendations. Do
Nice.
not watch Picard or Halo because I agree with Hadi there. There's
Don't waste
some
your time.
rubbish stuff going on. Don't waste time. We'll be back next month though for a very, very big topic. Obi-Wan
Let's
Kenobi, the series.
go.
Oh,
First episode's out
yeah.
already. It was awesome. Okay, I mean,
First
Yep.
two, actually.
Yeah,
yeah,
first
first
two.
two.
First two. For all of you, I mean, spoiler alert lah. For all of you who are worried about the Grand Inquisitor, don't be.
Yeah,
lah.
don't relax. Now that our friend Hidzir is caught up with all of Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Wow, like Obi-Wan was quite interesting.
Yeah, by the way, during my rewatch of Star Wars,
Yes.
I watched the Northman and Revenge of the Sith back to back. So
Uh-huh.
volcano battles in both
Oh my
movies
god.
really mirrored each other to me. Like, and I was like, can I get Robert Eggers to do a Star Wars? You know?
Actually, I
Oh
don't
my
mind.
god.
You should do a
Oh
Star.
my god.
Star
I would
Wars.
watch that.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. So, but yeah, don't be worried about the Grand Inquisitor. Dave Filoni is running the show. He's not dead. Like, how many people have been shot in the stomach or have Darth Maul lost his entire stomach and survived?
Exactly.
Van. So many people. Who else has been shot in the stomach? So many
That
people.
one,
Fennec
Fennec
Shen.
Shen, yeah, famously.
Yeah.
Thundercat,
Famously,
Right?
Thundercat, like put her back
you
together.
just need you just need Thundercat to show up and everything will be fine.
Yeah,
Right? Like there's no
in
worries.
yeah,
and
in
Thundercat
Star
is in
Wars,
Tatooine, so it's fine. No, they weren't in Tatooine though, and
they were in Dayu.
they're in Dayu. Yeah,
In Star Wars, a stomach wound is not fatal. It's been proven over and over again. Do not worry about the continuity issue. It's not there.
Mhm.
Plus, we'll talk about
Oh, wait,
Lightyear also.
it's only fatal for Qui-Gon Jinn though.
Well,
that's right.
yeah. Well,
I mean, he does
Yeah.
return as a force spirit, lah.
many years. It took place many years ago, and Thundercat wasn't around yet. so
Yeah,
that's
okay,
why.
maybe that's why. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the technology has not advanced
yeah,
yet. Plus, we'll be talking about Pixar's Lightyear, which follows the origins of the toy Buzz Lightyear.
Let's go.
This time is voiced by Chris Evans. It follows Lightyear, the astronaut, not Lightyear, the toy.
I love it.
This is a very interesting concept. Plus, I'll be recapping and reviewing the fourth and final season of Stranger Things,
Mhm.
which is 500 hours long. We have Jurassic World Dominion as well.
I'll do
including
that.
the Oh, nice, cool. Dinosaurs have inherited the world.
Yeah.
Good. The Umbrella Academy is back for its third season. Isa will be delving into a very long anime corner, highlighted by two outstanding anime, including
Yeah.
Spy Family and
Yeah.
Your Boy Kong Ming. That's our highlights for Genre Equality
Let's go.
55.
He's-
Very excited to talk about Obi-Wan, especially.
Same.
Yeah. Till next time, guys. This has been
I'm
Hidzir.
Hardy.
I'm Isa.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.